Oh, okay, I can see that we're live. So welcome to tonight's edition of the Men's Room Show. And tonight we're going to talk about some. Okay, I can see that we're live. So tonight's episode, we're going to be sharing perspectives about what masculine and feminine energy is and how the men can use it in their relationships and how they can use that to their advantage. And so for tonight's show, I have RJ Horner. So he's our men's empowerment coach. And then I've got Steve, our quantum coach. And so these two gentlemen here, this is a topic that resonates with them. But before we get into it, I'm going to give a little bit of history around our show. So the Men's Room Show is a weekly live show that creates a space for men to feel safe expressing their emotions in a vulnerable way. It is a place where men can come to be seen, heard, and acknowledged without feeling judged or afraid to show sides of themselves that are different or can be different than society's expectations. We aim to educate, inspire, empower, and advocate. And so our show was created out of inspiration from my role as an International Men's Day USA ambassador and member of the organization Voice of Men 360, which was founded in 2020 and is based in Toronto, Canada. These organizations exist for the purpose of providing support services for boys and men to overcome life's challenges. So, what I'd like to do before we jump into asking the panel of men these questions, we got to frame up what masculine and feminine energy is. A lot of people may or may not realize that it has nothing to do with your gender. It has more to do with doing energy and being energy. And so the doing is the masculine, the being is the feminine. And I know that Steve and RJ are going to have some additional thoughts that will blend with what I've just shared, but I'm just giving the street version of the definition. And so I'm gonna go ahead and read another version of the definition. And so this is another take on it. Masculine and feminine energy can play a role in relationships in a variety of ways. The concept of masculine and feminine energy is often used to describe the balance of different traits, such as assertiveness and receptiveness in individuals. In a relationship, having a balance of both masculine and feminine energy can create a dynamic of complementary strengths and can lead to a more harmonious and fulfilling partnership. Men can use their masculine energy to provide stability and assertiveness, while also being open to their partner's feminine energy and allowing for vulnerability and receptiveness. It's important to note that these are societal constructs, and not all men have to conform to them. Gender roles are not fixed, and each individual should be allowed to express themselves in a way that feels most authentic to them. So you've heard the street version, and then you've heard more of the clinical version of what that means. And I'm just going to start with our very first question just to break us out here. So the question I have for both of you is, how can men identify and balance their own masculine and feminine energy in a relationship? So I'm starting with the most difficult.
Yeah, I really, I hadn't considered it. It's not like you gave us these questions beforehand. So, everything in life is a balance, right? And we try to get it right. I'll start with one of the biggest things is, I think women, or at least that feminine aspect, is about nurturing. It's about caring and consideration, right? And we as men kind of leave that to the sidelines. We're not as considerate, gentle, caring. So one of the things that comes up in my life is my wife will be like, why don't you think about that? Why don't you consider that? You know what I mean? Like, and that's as far as picking up after us, you know what I mean? Just cleaning up the counter, things like that, maybe leaving things around. And she'll ask me, well, why do you not do this stuff? Why can't you just pick up after yourself? Or why can't you just get lunches made? You know what I mean? Why don't you think of these things? And it's because that's the answer right there is I don't think about them. I don't consider them. They're not part of my nature to just focus on and revolve around these considerations. Whereas my wife being the person who takes care of things, she just manages everything. She comes home, she makes sure all of our lunches are made, dishes are done, everything's put away, everyone's taken care of, right? These are things she just does automatically. And then, like I said, I get in trouble for them because I don't even, it's not top of mind for me, right? So that to me is one of the first ways that there's a difference between that masculine and feminine.
What I'm hearing is, it is the nurturing, and it is thinking about others in that capacity. And so you're using your home life, but what about in the workplace? How does that play in then? Does it change?
Um, I am more considerate in the workplace because you have to be considerate of others, right? Whereas at home, she takes care of me. It's what she does. So I expect it? I don't know. Um, but it's certainly that's what happens. Whereas at work, there has to be a give and take between coworkers, right? So I think we're more nurturing automatically in our workplace. Um, so yeah, we do consider, look, I do all my dishes at work. I clean up after other people sometimes if I see a mess in the kitchen at work. You know what I mean? Always make sure the fridge is in order and things like that because we need to be respectful of our coworkers. So yeah, I think we're a little bit more in tune with everybody in our workplace environment.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. And what I do think is that the type of work that you do actually has an impact on your energy, on your overall energy. So if you have a construction worker, his energy is going to be, his masculine energy is going to be up here, and a social worker will probably have his masculine energy here. For what I've seen in all the people around me is usually what comes up is when you get frustrated, when you don't feel like you in a moment, totally switch energies. So for example, this is really funny for me when I say that, but it's actually going to sound really well recognizable. When a woman doesn't feel right, she's going to start to talk very loudly, and she's going to get really tough with you in the way she talks and she acts. And actually, a man will do exactly the same thing in the opposite way. So if he doesn't feel right, take the example of being sick. How many women have said before that when a man is sick, he's dying?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's exactly what we're doing. We change energies, and that's when we change, and we become, well, I'm not going to say weak because that's not the right word. I'm searching for the right word, but we are going to be more feeling. I'm not feeling well, and your energy is completely off. Same thing with women. When they get sick, they get tough. They don't talk about it. They just master through it, which is very fun to see, because when you're feeling okay, you might go through pain and stuff, no problem. But when you're sick and you're really feeling down, well, pain is the worst thing as a man at some point. Now, what is also really funny about masculine and feminine energy is also in relationships. To me, and that's only my opinion, but okay, I'm still gonna share it. If you find someone who has the same energy as you do, you're gonna feel really good with that person, but it's just gonna work. There's not gonna be any passion. It's gonna be like, well, if you're a guy and you're a masculine guy and you have a woman that is really masculine, well, you're gonna say, hey, I feel good with her. It's like being with the guys. Well, yeah, that's fun and everything, but at some point you're gonna start to miss the feminine sides of that person. So that's when you're gonna start to search somewhere else to get that feminine energy. Same thing with women. If they find a feminine guy, well, that might be interesting because he understands everything that she's talking about. He's like, he likes shopping. He likes to talk about TV shows and whatever. And at some point, she's gonna get, yeah, do miss that masculine energy. I need to feel protected. I need this. I need that. So what's gonna happen? She's going to try and find it somewhere else. The difference also between masculine and feminine energy, to me, Linda, you said it was, what was it again? Do and
Doing and being. So the doing is the masculine and the being and thinking about others is more of the feminine. That's how I was looking at it.
yeah,
Consideration.
I actually do have my own view on this, and it really comes together. To me, it's a guy needs to feel needed. People with masculine energy needs to feel needed, and a feminine energy needs to be wanted. That's a big difference, because you can actually get the example from that when you see a mom and the kids running around her and, mommy, I need you, I need you, I need you. Well, she's gonna get sick of it.
Yep. You called that one right.
And a guy is not gonna feel loved when he's just wanted. He needs to feel that he's needed. If he's not needed, well, what's the point? For a guy, that's what's the point? So that relationship is not going anywhere. If a guy doesn't feel needed, and if a woman doesn't feel she's wanted, well, that's when everything goes berserk. So that's a little bit how I see things in there.
No, that's
Yeah.
well said, for sure.
Yeah, listening and tracking, I'm taking what you're saying, and I'm like, do I show up that way? Do I think that way? And what I'm thinking about examples in my head, because before we got on the show, Steve and I were talking and trading stories back about the definition and where I thought I was and where he thought he was, and we were trying out some things. So one of the things we wanted to talk about this evening was, how can the balance of the two energies improve the relationship? Because you mentioned two things here. You said, the whole dynamics between the wanting and the needing are reversed. And there's also times when really you want to get a point across, or you want to make sure you're considering other people. And so I noticed there's a gravitation to talk about, when you're talking about the feminine and nurturing in the home. That's why I asked, okay, what happens in the workplace? A little bit different dynamic, is it the same? Is it different? And I kind of tend to do the reversal. When I'm in the workplace, I'm a go, let's get it done, make sure everyone knows what they're doing, and we execute and get things done. And so, before I hopped on tonight, I'm still in the energy of what I was doing at work, where we were having to get it done and understand it and be able to be confident in what we're doing. And so I'm still in that place right now. And so I just find that interesting, because I do definitely have a nurturing side too that will show up. And that's probably more on when I'm thinking about a decision I'm going to make, how is it going to affect every person in the party? And so that comes up. So because we're trying to balance it out, I tend to think I flip back and forth between the two. And I don't know that I have a 50-50 balance. Sometimes it feels like an 80-20 either way, depending on where I'm at. How do you guys balance it out? And do you do certain things that you find are really effective that work for you, whether it's, conflict resolution or you're wanting to make a decision? How does that play in there when you're either with your partner or in the workplace?
Good question. First of all, we like on Steve's point, we have rules. We do, and we're never going to have a balance. Look, you know what? Being a male, you tend to have the masculine energy higher than the feminine, right? But I mean, not everyone. You may find males who, they have a higher feminine energy. There's nothing wrong with that. They can still be manly even though they're in touch with their feminine energy. That's, it's just who they are. I think of The Odd Couple, Oscar and Felix, you know what I mean? They're both males, both, mature, macho, well, maybe not macho in Felix's case, but you get it. One's in touch with their more feminine energy. And so that can be perfectly normal. But I think we need the opposite with us. That's where like Steve says, if you have a person who has the same energy as you, or even close to that balance, there's not going to be much satisfaction. There's not going to be much passion or intensity to it.
Exactly.
But whereas we have opposites, we're able to manage it better because we need that, not necessarily conflict, but conflicting natures. We have to have that opposite attract, just like magnetic poles, right? We have to be balanced. There's how we balance, right? Because when you're adjusting energy, right? Maybe your wife has a higher masculine energy. Now you need to adjust your feminine energy to balance that out so that we're always circulating in the same zone. Funny you mentioned when we're sick, men tend to be more needy and I need to be taken care of. It's actually the opposite in my household, but it's because my wife, she's the doer. She's let's get this done. We got to do this. Here's how we do this. Why don't you do this? And me, I'm just a beer. I like to exist. So when she gets sick, my wife is needy. She is a baby. She needs to be taken care of, but I need to step up and take care of her at that point, right? Because she takes care of everything 24/7 all the time. There's where it's my opportunity to show up for her and give her that need that she requires, right? So there's the balance right there.
Exactly.
Really good example, actually. Yes. I appreciate you for sharing that.
Yeah. Well, I have an example. I coached a couple that was really, really fun to work with, because on one side we had, from the outside, from what you could see, a very masculine guy. He was like almost like a biker when you saw him, full of really massive rings, skulls everywhere, tattoos everywhere, scruffy beard, and she was like that little thingy that was, well, you could almost take her in your hand. She was really, really tiny, and the two energies were so different. She was really masculine and he was really feminine. So it was weird, because, well, I wasn't used to that. And when I remember, it was really funny. At some point, she was saying something, and he just went, "Yes, dear." It was funny to see, but
And what do we say that in that situation? We know who wears the pants in that family, right?
exactly,
So there's the masculine energy right there.
exactly. But it worked. These people were together for 25 years. Why? Because they balance it out. And she explained that, well, he does have that feminine energy in their relationship, but when comes the moment that she needs to be protected, he shifts in an instant and becomes that, well, what, to quote her, he becomes the beast. So yeah, to after all that she was explaining how everything worked out, well, they weren't really deep in the explanation, so I'm not going to go that far, but it seemed really passionate about what everything that was going on in their relationship was really passionate. When they went on a holiday or something, they were having fun. It was there was no boredom in that relationship. And both of them told me that they were with similar energy people before. And it wasn't, it was plain boredom for them. They were just missing out on something. And that was what came out. They could not put their finger on it because they don't know about masculine and feminine energy, but they could not put their finger on what was missing. And she actually told me that if he would have been 24 hours a day feminine energy, she would miss something too. But because he can switch at the moment it's needed, well, that's exactly what you said before, RJ. When your wife needs you, well, you step up, you shift your energy. You're going to take care of her. Well, that was the same thing, but it was always different. And she was working as a school teacher for really little kids, and she told me that she was really feminine in what she was doing at work. And well, he's a construction worker, so I cannot imagine him using his feminine energy to do that.
Oh, come on, guys. Let's get this done.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's all fun when you see things like that. And
Mhm.
me, for myself, I've seen the toxic side of people using masculine and feminine energy. And well, I talked a little bit about that last time. um, I've been with a very masculine woman before, and she was actually using that masculine energy against me. She actually used terms like, between you and me, I'm the man. So that's humiliating. As a guy, that's humiliating. Not because I don't want to be called a woman or anything, but it's still, it's my place, it's my spot. I'm the guy. So she did a lot of those remarks about me not being masculine enough, and I didn't get it at that moment. And she got really, really, really surprised when I was done with it, because when I was done, I shifted my energy to masculine.
Mhm.
And she did not know how to handle that. So she became really feminine at that moment. So it didn't work at all. That relationship went straight to hell. But from that moment, something clicked in my brain, and I learned to see, okay, what are the qualities of masculine energy? What are the qualities of feminine energy? And how can I switch between them to do what I need to do? And I think that as a coach, you can easily find that because you're working with a lot of people. But for example, I was really impulsive before when I needed to take a decision. I was just going for it and didn't think too much about it. But now I'm considering everything, and then I'm still going, okay, so now that I got all of this, do I do this anyway? And from that moment, I'm just going for it, and then stay focused with the masculine energy going forward. but I'm using my feminine energy to take the decision.
Mhm.
So also when someone comes to you and needs you to hear them out and to just be a listening ear, a lot of guys just want to fix things. So if their woman comes to them with a problem, they are trying. Men are fixers, so we are going to try to fix everything, and that's not always the right way to take things. Um, Women like to be listened to first, because when you come with a solution immediately, they think you didn't listen to them how you should have listened.
So what happens if the woman wants to be the fixer? How does that play out? Because I usually have to hold back because I want to go into fixed mode. I will listen when you ask me if I want, you want an ear, I'll listen. But I want to jump to fix and I have to put the tape on, sit on the hands, remember, okay, I'm not fixing, I'm listening. So how
I've had
does
to
that
learn
work?
that. I've had to learn that one, Linda, because I mean, again, as men, we're just
Mhm.
naturally inclined to, have the answers to
Mhm.
solve the problem. When you're talking and telling me this is what you've experienced today, or this is what you're dealing with at work, I'm naturally thinking, okay, have you tried this? Would you can you do
Yeah.
that?
Mhm.
Um, whereas, I mean, how do you do it the other way? Um how do you look? My wife has done the same thing. Like, you know what I mean? Well, you need to see the doctor, or you need to, you need to get this done. You need to deal with that. And I do get a little offended, right? It's
Mhm.
just a natural inclination to maybe shrink back a bit, or just, take some offense, because she's trying to help. Because I'm the fixer. I'm the one who's coming up with the solution. Why are you doing this, right? Where do you come off telling me that I need to do this? That's not how it works, right? So we do have to kind of learn how to accept it, right? Accept that they're just trying to help. They're just trying to be, to their eyes, be there for us, just as we are trying to be there for them, but we're not reading properly the energy that we're giving off, right?
Yeah.
So there is that issue. One of the things you touched on, Steve, was, that brought up a thought in my mind, is we have to know, how to respond to each other, how to consider each other when I'm in a feminine energy, whatever that may be. Knowing my partner, knowing that she has to take up that masculine side. Again, there's that balance, right? We have to kind of stay in balance. So having the respect for the other person to, like Linda says, close the lip and just, take it with, however it may come. Um, and then the other thing that brought up was, oh, I've forgotten it now. I may think of it again, because it was something that really, when you were talking, there was a couple things that came to mind. So, but again, we do have to learn how to balance. We do have to learn how to, adjust our energy to suit the mood at the time. And it is based on, at least in it. Look, we're talking about, partnership relationships, but same thing at work. When somebody we're interacting is giving off that masculine energy, we need to be able to come back in a caring, considerate manner, right? So that we can balance, because there has to be balance there at all times.
Yeah, and there's something that you said right now that reminded me of something I heard a few years ago. Was actually a quote, and it was from Tony Robbins. He was talking about masculine and feminine energy, and he said, if you have a problem, if you see that your wife isn't feeling okay, don't change her mind, change her mood.
Mhm.
Because when you change the mood of someone, well, you're not changing anything about the problem. You're just making them feel better, but you're not going to try and make them change how they feel about that problem. So let's say she had an argument with a friend and she's really pissed at her, and you're going to try to make her not pissed at that person, well, that's not going to work, because then she's going to take it like you're defending that person. But if you just try to change her mood by being silly, being romantic, listening to her and giving some feedback, but just your opinion about things, it's going to work pretty well. But if you're going to try to change her mind about what is going on, that's a problem.
And so, and one of the things that works too is reframing, right? So what I'm hearing you say is so that she knows you're listening, but
Absolutely.
you're not judging, you're not coming up with a solution, you're not solving the problem for her. You're just, here's what I'm hearing you say. So that she knows that she's there for you, right? So, and one of the things, so that's what I was thinking about earlier, is one of the things that came up is kind of knowing your roles, and not to say, she's feminine, she needs to be, she needs to be the woman in the relationship. I'm masculine, I need to be the man, but kind of along those lines, in the sense that she takes care of the household, I take care of the home. In other words, she takes care of dinners, the cleaning, sorry, but that's what she does. But she also takes care of the furniture, the furnishings, the drapery around the house. Just these are the things that a woman naturally is inclined to do, so she works well doing that. And then I take care of the home. It's that being wanted. Look, she's feeling wanted because she's taking care of everything that needs to go on in the home and running it. And we get to feel need in that we take care of everything that revolves around her household, right? So if something breaks down, it's our job to fix it. If something goes wrong, it's our job to take it out or get rid of it or remove it. My wife and my daughter, they get freaked out over spiders, right? And it's my job when I hear the scream to come running and take care of that spider, get rid of it. So these are things, but again, she takes care of the household, I take care of the home. And by knowing our roles, we know where each other fits in taking care of things.
I like what you're saying there, because you're saying a little bit more. It's knowing how your role complements the other person and where you can fit in, and you can have that mutual exchange back and forth, regardless of the energies that are coming. It's showing that appreciation. It's showing that you can communicate, and because that was one thing that I was like hearing about, how you can use your energies for effectiveness. And if your partner, let's say, is coming in more masculine energy and it's pushing up upon you, well, then that's for that feminine energy, like, hey, I know that you want XYZ done, and you're trying to fix this, but I need you to allow me to breathe, allow me to have this feeling about this thing, rather than trying to fix it for me. I just want you to listen to me. So that's where that communication piece can fit in really nice, when you let the other person know what it is that you want and what it is that you need, and so they can see that, okay, I'm going to switch up how I'm arriving to this and go into a different energy. That's what I'm picking up on.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with being a man when she's coming across with that strong masculine energy, to recede and adjust your energy so that you're more nurturing and caring. There's nothing wrong with that, right? We're again trying to keep it in balance, right? So let her have that, strong masculine moment. Let her take control and just take it back and just relax and give her what she needs, right? So it is a give and take, no matter what. It's a matter of keeping those poles at the exact right distance.
It's not a fight. It shouldn't be a fight. It should be something that you flex and are adaptable as the time.
And so that's what I'm saying. There's nothing wrong with us backing off. We don't have to just go, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? You can't come back like that, because now you've created conflict. Whereas if you do recede a little bit and adjust, and look, you can see my energy calming down to try and adjust that energy to what she's giving off, and vice versa as well. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I was trying to think of an example of where the feminine and feminine would come together and you'd switch one of them, but imagine Steve will think of something. So let's see, what else did I want to ask tonight? Okay, well, we can talk a little bit about society, because society always has a thought on the construct of masculine and feminine energy. But how do you think it influences the behavior in relationships? We kind of touched upon that in one of our other weekly episodes about what society thinks that a man is and how he should come in and interact, and that must play some role in this feminine masculine energy exchange. I can't see where it wouldn't, because you guys already kind of used a couple examples of, like Steve, he talked about a couple what was totally reverse. On the outside, you got the masculine, but he was more feminine, and then you got the little petite woman, and she's got more of the masculine. So society says it should be reversed. However, it's to each to their own. It's the relationship that you're in, and it might not fit that normal mold, and you came up with some really good examples of how that worked really well for them. And so thinking about it more from a relationship dynamic of how it can be effective when the two are both appreciated, regardless of which one's showing up when. That's what I think.
I do have a really unpopular opinion about this. Want me to share it?
That's what we're here for, Steve. If you can,
All right.
look, we're not trying to create conflict, but
No.
if you have an opinion that people can accept and adjust their own thinking, that's what we're here for.
I think it might be interesting to just have a view about this, so you can analyze that and see if well, it's my opinion, so it can be changed, but to my opinion, how society works right now, it's kind of toxic in a way that a lot of people are asking men to come to talk and say when use communication, and say when something is going wrong, and when they do not feel right. But when we do that, a lot of times it's used against us afterwards. So that is kind of what I find hypocritical from society. So I do think that men need to speak up. Definitely, men need to be more vulnerable, because, well, it's actually more masculine to be vulnerable than actually just keeping everything inside. So vulnerability for me is a superpower. You can get more out of vulnerability. You get more empathy from other people, usually. But for example, I do have a really great example for that. So I had a couple, and he was really masculine. He was a guy who kept everything inside, and if there's a problem, he doesn't want to talk about it. It's done. The problem is there, but we don't talk about it. It's done. So he gets out of the house, and a few hours later he comes back, and we don't need to talk about this anymore. It's over. Well, that's all great and everything, but she started complaining that he doesn't want to talk, that she doesn't have communication with him. Now, what I said to the guy was, well, you need to start communicating. And he started doing that. And a few weeks later, she was complaining that he was too nagging. He was always nagging. He was always complaining. He was always crying. Well, that's what you asked for. He's just showing up as what you're asking, and you're not taking it too well. So to me, if that's really what you're searching for, well, you need to adapt too. And that's sometimes is the problem in a relationship. There's people who can switch energies, and others who don't want to switch energies. And that's where the toxic part starts to float in. That's also what I had in my relationship, for example. So I switched a lot. I was the protector. I was the kind when I showed up with empathy. I was trying to fix everything. I was doing everything. I was taking care of her. And when I needed some comfort, it was just like, oh, you're not going to cry, is it? So to me, that's a kind of relationship that you need to run from. Or you try to have a communication lines open, but usually in that type of relationship, it's not going to work well. That's my opinion anyways.
No, I
Yeah,
love
you
what you
gotta,
said. Sorry if you don't mind if I
no,
jump
go
in.
ahead.
So because again, we have to be able to adjust, right? Look, we know the masculine energy is high, it's intense, it's you know what I mean. Coming across, look, like you said, we as men, if we're communicating about a problem, it tends to come off that we're complaining, we're we're yelling about it, we're aggressive about it, something like that. And then the female energy is to tend to keep it inside, to keep it quiet, to keep it, maybe not say anything because we don't want to rock the boat. But there's where we need to adjust. Look, as men with the masculine energy, we need to adjust that in our communication. We need to be more sensitive of who we're talking to, the topic that we're discussing. And if we're a little more gentle, we can embrace the topic and maybe gain some ground in the desperate communication that we're trying to have. And whereas women with a female energy, they need to feel strong and comfortable enough to voice their opinion, to say what's on their mind, to have their say, especially in office environments. Linda, you know this better than anybody. In a team environment, by speaking up, you get more accomplished. And whereas in this, we've come from the masculine environment, right? The male boss environment. So women have a hard time speaking up and voicing what might be a very valid opinion, but they keep it to themselves. So they're not good at addressing the communication in a masculine manner. So we have to be able to, again, back to the balance, right? We have to know when it's time to use these masculine or feminine energies accordingly, right? So again, we can come off in a certain way, but there's where biases tend to show up, right?
Yeah.
But we need to know that it's okay to, like Steve says, to be vulnerable at certain circumstances, or to be strong and assertive in certain circumstances. And that's something that both male and female have to know how to use effectively.
I do have a trick. Well, it's not a trick. It's more like a rule that I give to everyone that I see. If you want to open communication with your partner, just two rules: say what you want to say, but watch the delivery.
Mhm.
Oh, I love
That's the
that.
only
That's
thing.
great.
So you have both energies with that. Masculine energy, I'm saying what I think, but I'm going to make sure that I don't hurt you while I'm saying it.
I have a motto for that too. Is I hit everybody with everything I've got. Now that sounds aggressive, right? But it's not, because I treat everybody with honesty, integrity, and tact. So be honest. Say what you got to say. You know what I mean? But be you. Be 100% you. There's the integrity, right? But then you've got to be considerate of who you're talking to and what's the topic of hand. So treat people with that diplomacy that this conversation requires.
And there's something that I found that was really, really positive in between those energies. There is something that I very often do when I'm in a relationship and I get in an argument and it starts to get heated. She's getting on my nerves, I'm getting on her nerves. What's happening? From that point on, you can go and climb higher and higher, and that masculine energy is coming from both sides then. So what do? I shift to my feminine energy and I just go, damn, I love you. And it's completely, well, it's almost like, hey, I'm pulling you back down here by doing that. And you're back down, and it's more, you're back to the loving part. Because, well, let's face it, if you love someone, that's more important than an argument. So one, just asking yourself, is this argument worth that I'm losing that person, or is that person more important than the argument? When you start doing that, just asking yourself, okay, this is going the wrong way. Is that person more important than me winning this argument?
Yeah.
And just by asking yourself that question, your energy is shifting immediately. And when you just go with a big smile and you say, "Oh, I love you," and you just take that person in your arms, well, okay, you might have some people that are resistant to that, but let's face it, there's not a lot of people who are going to push you away when you try to get to say, hey, I love you, come in my arms.
And so that's kind of like, we can't let that masculine energy get too charged or too high. You know what I mean? I kind of relate it to a compressor, an air compressor, right? We're constantly building up energy. We're building up that pressure until it gets to a point where it's ready to blow. That's why we have that release valve, or the, you know, the compressor shuts off at a specific time. So the pressure doesn't continue to get high and it blows, right? That's exactly the same in that intense environment. So just you going, you know what? I love you, babe. Right? It's like, pff, there's that bleed valve that starts to release the air pressure. And then, so look, when I was at my worst, my wife and I couldn't communicate. We couldn't talk because it was too high of a masculine energy in our home. We were always fighting. We were always arguing. So that was my solution. I said, you know what? This is enough. I'm gonna stop fighting. In other words, when she gets mad, when she gets angry, it just, you look, there's nothing wrong with backing off and receding. Like I said, that's what was the first lesson I had to learn. It was like, you know what? Okay, I understand. Instead of going, okay, no, but this is, you know, no, okay, I understand. And now the conversation changes because you're releasing that pressure.
Yeah, that's also a big difference between men and well, masculine energy and feminine energy. It's the men are really ego based. So what I mean by that is we are going to go in competition with a person when we have an argument. It's not, we don't care about what's going on. We just want to win that argument. And women usually are more inclined to just listen people out and even change their mind if it's necessary. So usually you can also say that at work, because, well, Linda asked that before and it comes in my mind right now. But at work, women are the reverse of that also. So at work, they usually get really competitive, and men are going to be more nurturing. Like you said, RJ, at work, you're more there for everyone. You're taking responsibility for what you have to do. So everything is done well. And well, Linda, I don't know if you work with a lot of women, but usually when you have a lot of women in one team and not a lot of guys, usually you have a lot of gossip on one another because you go in competition. Men don't usually do that easily. And that has to do with the side that we change our energies, we reverse it when we go out of our homes. And that's also why very often you have like, well, a school teacher. She might be really direct at school, but at home, she's like a little sheep. You can do whatever with her, there's no problem. But at school, well, she might be the most direct of all the teachers.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm always looking at environmental team dynamics to see what energies are coming and whether it's that take charge or nurturing. And yeah, it's interesting. The more you're aware of this, the more you can adapt and change to your circumstances, and it becomes something of second nature. Just listening to the two of you talk, you brought up a couple of really valid points. When you're in a space where you've got two people going at a discussion and it's getting heated, that trying to win is not going to get you anywhere, but receding and showing that you're coming from a collaborative energy, you're going to come a lot better into redirecting the conversation, because basically what you're doing is you are kind of sparking that change in the what's going on. So by lowering your voice and saying, honey, I love you, well, you can't really not respond in some way, shift that anger and that yelling or whatever it is that you're doing to come back down. And that works both coming and going. When in the same in the workplace too, if you are trying to compete and have the best idea in the room, have the best reputation, and you're overpowering everybody, you're not going to get as far as where you come in from collaborative. What can we do to solve this thing? Who are the players that we need to talk to? How will this affect the team at the end of the day, or the customers? You come from a collaborative space. That's a great thing to do in the dynamics, which is again, that nurturing, that caring about who else is in the environment that where you need to be paying attention to that. So I think you guys have given, a lot of really good examples, both of what we see as maybe classic gender roles, but you've also talked about some cases where the roles have been switched and have very positive things to say. And so, what I want our viewers to hear right now is that there is benefit into not falling into a traditional male-female role, but think about our energies as that being and doing in all of our interactions, whether it's with our partners or in society, in the workplace, for example. So I guess at this point, what I'd like to do is to hear from each of you if you have a quick last tip on how you balance this out, that you haven't shared already. Maybe there's something else that came up when I was talking. If you could share that, and then I'll go ahead and have our rest of our announcements.
Yeah, I do have a little tip that works pretty well. When you want to know if you don't really get it, how energies work, it's pretty easy. You know what type of energy a person is in by the way they're talking to you. So if someone is talking really, when you feel that it's comes from here, when they're talking from here, they're really using their masculine energy. When it comes from the throat, it's usually just feminine energy. So adapt to that. If your partner is using masculine energy, well, use feminine energy to balance it out. If you feel like, well, it's necessary that this time I show up more masculine energy so she feels more protected, or he feels more protected, well, you can do that, but you need to watch out with that. So just listen to how they're talking. So that's my tip.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And you know what, there's a couple things I picked up on. First of all, we've talked about polarity. So I don't know about if you guys know about polarity. I mean, I'm talking about people out there, because if you see the polarity effect, it's always in balance. As it's circling, everything is the exact same distance away. So we have to have that balance, right? You saw me doing this and keeping the equal distance, because we have to have that balance, because that's the polarity effect. And if we are in tune, we're going to adjust and keep that energy at the same level. The second thing I want to say is, look, we're in 2023. It's not 1973. We've come a long way. Tony Robbins has done, like you said, done a lot of work on gender balance and getting us equally adjusted to each other. Brene Brown has come a long way in teaching us masculine vulnerability and being able to adjust and being able to be considerate and being able to open up who we are, open up that can of worms, as they say, right? And let it just pour out. So look, don't be afraid out there to adjust these gender biases. We no longer have to accept that a man is a man and a woman is a woman. You need to know your place, and you need to know how to come across as, male and female. We're long past that at this point. We are people. And if we're able to balance these masculine and feminine energies and know when to effectively use them, we can carry on relationships in any circle by, like Steve says, knowing the energy the person's coming off with and being able to polarity balance that energy.
Absolutely. You guys just rocked it tonight when it came to being able to take this subject and really to add your own experiences and the things that you observed, and then interacting with me as your host on some ways that I may have seen things, because I certainly learned a few things just by listening to you two tonight that I hadn't really thought of in the same way. And now you've given me yet another perspective to move forward in my interpersonal relationships. So I thank you for that. I would also like to thank everyone that's listening tonight into our show. And we want to encourage you to do two things. We want to encourage you to join the Men's Room Show and Support Group on Facebook. And we also want you to join the Men's Room Show on YouTube. Those are two places that you can find us. And what we've been doing that works really well for us right now is that we're going live each Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and all of the times around the world. Steve's with us from Belgium. And we really just want to have you come in to our group, our show. We're always looking for other men and women that would like to join the panel. So I'm really excited about what's going to go on next week, next Thursday. The men have decided to flip the script. So rather than them being the ones where I'm asking the questions, I'm going to be on the hot seat with some other women, and they're going to ask us some questions. And so it's going to be centered around how we feel about issues that affect men. It could be what we think. It could be how we feel. I don't know where they're going to take us, but I don't know if they're going to give us the advanced questions. I think they're going to be ornery and hold them and make us be on the hot seat. So join us next week for some fun and excitement. And for that, we're going to go ahead and end for tonight, and we'll see you next week.
All right.